Let me just retrieve the camera.
It's kind of McDonald. It's 50 MPs, correct? Download, I have moved it to my co-driver because I cannot download from my email. Now it says it cannot handle this. It means it's searching for virus. Okay. Copy it. Try this one? Oh, make a copy here. Okay.
They sold the extension cord for the camera. It's film from a strange angle. Hey, welcome. Well, you don't know where it is. No, Dad wants to ask for it. So just start from there. If the table comes, you can make it. So which department are you in?
Department of Computer Science and Engineering, so second computer science department.
Oh, there's two of them there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. When I went to NYU, it was in Quarantine.
Yeah, engineering school was separate, and then I came back into it, and then I had the computer science department each. And that's
All right, so welcome everyone. So this is a workshop on environments and evaluation for AGI, and the structure of this is we're going to start with a substantial keynote address by Julian Togelius from the Computer Science and Engineering Department at NYU, who's been thinking and writing about this topic for a while, games as environments and benchmarking tools for AGIs. Then Kristen will give a brief talk, and I will give a brief talk overviewing childlike IQ tests, and Kristen will talk about task-based frameworks for evaluating AGI. And the intention is that these talks will not consume all of the time, and we should be able to open up some interesting discussions on the general topic of evaluation and environment for AGI, which is a tough topic because sort of AGI is not just one thing. People are building different kinds of systems with different strengths and weaknesses. So getting people to agree on one approach to environments and evaluation certainly will not be possible, but at least we can explore together the different approaches and their different characteristics. So, without further ado, let's let Julian say what he has to say.
Thanks. Right. Can you hear me? Yes, you hear me. Brilliant. Tell me if you don't hear me. So I'm Julian Togelius of New York University at the second computer science department. We have two these days, just to confuse everybody, myself included. And I also hang out with I share offices with the Game Center, which is the game design department, which is also just to confuse everybody. Right, so I'm going to talk about games as benchmarks for artificial general intelligence. I'm happy for you to interrupt me if there is like something something I should have mentioned, or you just like vehemently disagree with me, which you may do. I might say a few things which you may vehemently disagree with. Anyway, before I start, a few things about who I am. I grew up in Sweden. I went to school. I finished school despite everything. I had huge issues with maths. I did not want to touch maths ever again. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. But I really wanted to understand the mind. So I went to Lund University, studied philosophy and psychology, but I was basically too impatient for that because, philosophy, you get like you get like a conceptual revolution every 100 years or so, and I wanted something to happen before then. Psychology, likewise, really things don't move that quickly. I needed to build a mind in order to understand it. So, despite what I had promised myself when I finished school, I found myself going more and more into computer science and becoming one of them. I know even work at an engineering school. How's that? You know, so basically I was in Sussex with the biorobotics people for a bit, from masters in Essex, from a PhD. I did a postdoc with Jürgen Schmidhuber in Lugano, same place where Bas, one of the program chairs, is from. And I sort of moved more and more into artificial intelligence. I thought I was going to use robotics for my AI research. I came initially more from the biologically inspired approach, and I thought I was going to use robotics for that. As it turned out, you know, robotics are also very slow. I mean, they take a lot of time, they break down, you get oil on your hands and stuff like this. I didn't like that. So I decided I could use the same stuff, I could use games for this, and that's what's been happening ever since. So these days, I have a game innovation lab, we call it, and I work in equal amounts, I would say, on games for AI and AI for games. These are two different things. Very often I do work which has basically relevance for both of these goals, but these are two different things, which many people in CS academia don't really understand. This talk is going to be almost exclusively about games for AI, using games for benchmarking and testing and developing AI, and more specifically the artificial general intelligence, but there's also lots of interesting stuff. I'm going to mention that in the end about using AI for making games better and stuff. So let's start with the basic idea. Games as AI benchmarks. It's basically as old as the idea of AI and the idea of computers, as probably you all know. I mean, Turing, back in the days, he reinvented the minimax algorithm, however you say it, to play chess even before he had a computer, and play chess doing the calculations on paper with himself. And since then, basically, I mean, the first reinforcement learning algorithm was by Samuels at IBM in 1956, I think, or 57, something like this. So basically, using games has a very long history, and it has games have a number of very, very strong things to say for them. Basically, it's faster, cheaper, technically easier than robots, while preserving many of the interesting problems for AI that robots give us, and abstracting away some problems. And some of the problems that are abstracted away might be interesting, handling all this noise and stuff like this, but you can basically inject that into games artificially. And some of the game problems that are abstracted away are, to me, frankly, uninteresting. So games are made to challenge human thinking. So basically, one thing to remember, I'm not talking about Prisoner's Dilemma, mountain cars, and these sort of very similar mathematical games. When I say games, I mean games that someone, like a human, would actually play. Games are made to challenge human thinking. The reason why we want to play games is that they exercise our brain, and a number of converging theories from game design, from developmental psychology, from machine learning, basically come together on the idea that, you know, a large part of the fun in a game is learning to play it. If a game is trivial and you can never get better at it, because you just win from the start, it is no fun. If a game is impossible and you cannot get better at it because it's impossible, it is no fun. That's the way most people feel when they try EVE Online or something like this, which is a game that for most people is simply impossible. Games that are very well designed and appeal to a very large amount of people are games where you sort of constantly learn more about the game. You get deeper and deeper into it. And games that are designed by people who know what you're doing have this property, which is one of the reasons why, if they are built to sort of optimally challenge our thinking, they should be excellent AI benchmarks. At least this is one of my sort of foundational statements, which you're welcome to disagree with, but I think so. Right. So many people have had these ideas. As we see the history of board games, we have, starting here in black and white, John McCarthy playing chess against something the size of a small room, which probably has a few kilobytes of memory. I can't remember exactly which computer it is. Then we have Kasparov being beaten by IBM's Deep Blue. And then in blue, we have DeepMind's AlphaGo winning over Lee Sedol, which, to my mind, might be the last big computers versus human board game event. Because basically what we had there was that this was the last game which a large number of people deeply cared about, where humans were still unbeaten. And the evidence is now that we've far surpassed the best human players since. So I mean, you can construct other board games which humans might be better at, or more at other classical board games, but those are constructed board games that people won't really care about. Then there are other board games which humans are far better than computers at, which we're not going to go into here, but these are like non-classical board games. Diplomacy is one of those. I don't know if anyone here has played Diplomacy? Like who here has lost a friend over Diplomacy? It's an amazing board game where you basically play, in the original version, you play the First World War, but it's actually all about negotiation and shaking hands, looking each other in the eye, and trusting each other, and then backstabbing each other. Yep, it's amazing. And currently we can't even hold a meaningful computer-to-human match in this game because we don't have the natural language capabilities. But looking at classical board games, I would say that, I mean, it's over. That's it, we need to move on. So video games, these games up here, all of these games are games for which we currently have active game-based AI competitions running at some of the game AI conferences, which are IEEE Computation Intelligence and Games, and AAAI's Artificial Intelligence and Interactive Digital Entertainment, a bit of a mouthful. And we see here StarCraft, Super Mario Bros, Torx, which is a car racing game, and Unreal Tournament 2004, which is a first-person shooter. Which one of these games is hardest for our computer? What do you think? StarCraft? Definitely. Why?
It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
You've got strategy at
Yeah.
a pretty high level as well as
Yeah.
the tactics are probably easier for the computers, but the
Yeah.
multiple layers of strategy are very solid for that.
Yeah.
There's been a rumor that DeepMind will attempt StarCraft next.
There's a rumor that DeepMind will attempt StarCraft next. I do not know whether that is true.
It's true that there's a rumor.
No, the beautiful thing with StarCraft is that there's so many levels of reasoning. So there's basically the micro, the tactics. The micro is basically on a sub-second level, moving your individual units back and forth. And the best StarCraft players, which are treated as basically as sports stars in Korea, which is a spiritual home of StarCraft, even though it's a US game. Also, by the way, I think it's a civilization which treats like game players as sports stars. I mean, it's a civilized civilization. I like that. But anyway, so they have like click-through rates of 300 clicks per minute and so on to move all the units around. Then you have the tactics. You have the economy, which resources are mining to your proportion. You have the build order. You have the overall strategy of moving your troops. Build orders, which units you're going to build, which upgrades you're going to get to build and to be able to build which units and so on. And there's just an enormous amount of depth, and there's so many layers to this game. Super Mario Bros. And car racing are surprisingly enough not solved, you would say. We don't have something that consistently outperforms humans. Unreal Tournament depends on how you see the game. If you give it access to parsed, nice information, it's essentially solved, because in the first-person shooter such as this, superhuman reactions will basically win for you. But if you give it a raw screen feed, it's not solved yet. Here's some examples of what it's currently looking like. So this is from an old video I like showing people from our first sort of Super Mario Bros. The Mario AI competition in 2009. This entry surprised us because it played so extremely well, and the levels we had at the time, which were like all linear, it beat all of them and as far as we could see, it played perfectly. Hard to measure, but probably. And also it plays in this sort of, you're sort of hypnotic to watch, because basically he does these things that no human would ever do, jumping at the last ever pixel and so on. This is a completely deterministic game. You have, and in this version with these levels, you have essentially perfect information. It doesn't seem to be one of it. Yep, you couldn't do that. You could. This is an A-star algorithm planning in state space. We were sort of sad when we saw this. We thought this was an interesting eye problem, and hey, someone does A-star in state space and then win. That's boring. What we did was start creating a number of other levels, which would force you to backtrack to other rooms to go back. So basically adding a bit of like cul-de-sacs into the problem. And the pure A-star would lose, and a couple of hierarchical algorithms with A-star at the lower level and evolved rule sets at a higher level would actually win. Here's another example. This is for the 2011 leg of the Simulated Car Racing Championship, which I was part of starting, and then I left it to the Italians because they were more crazy about it. So basically, it's an okay 3D racing game, okay physics. The state of the art here is that the best controllers basically drive, if they're alone on a track or they're ahead of you, they will drive faster than you and finish the race, faster than you and win. If you are ahead of them, or there are multiple cars on the track, no one has yet submitted no one has yet submitted, as you can see, a car that really handles overtaking really well. Because they're easy to block and they're easy to sort of, there's a damage model. You get penalized for crashing too much. But still, I mean, a human could easily outmaneuver the other cars. So even that's not quite solved. But in the last few years, there hasn't been much progress, not many groups working on it. For a couple of years, it was a fairly big topic. Yeah, if we go on here, there are some interesting crashes and stuff later on, but we're here for science, not for watching simulated cars crash, do we? Right. So the problem here is the overfitting. Obviously, you develop an agent that can play one of these games, and you will not. The StarCraft player cannot play Super Mario Bros. At all or Torx at all, because you wouldn't even know how to interface it to the game.